Hi, my name is Lance Edwards. I'm with the senior team of Fairfax Realty. We're a group of realtors that have over 20 years experience in the industry. Now our goal is to provide you with superior real estate service throughout the metropolitan area without compromising any principles. What I can assure you with our team is that our representation, our negotiation, and our transaction management will be some of the best in the industry. And when you're dealing today in this industry, it's very important that you have a real estate professional who understand those services. First, I want to start off with representation. Now, representation, we focus on a few things. One, we focus on your best interest. It's very important that we manage your best interest, because if we do that, it's within our best interest. And let me explain to you a little bit more in detail what I mean. If we take you through this process, and every time you call, we answer your calls. Every time you have a question, we're able to answer your question. Anytime you have any problems or any education issues, we can educate you and explain to you the process so that you don't have any surprises during that process. And you're happy at the end of the day once you get your keys, then we're happy. Meaning that if you're happy, you'll refer us to some people and we'll continue to do business. So it's very important that we please you so you'll please us. All right. The second thing we focus on is best price. Now, best price, everybody wants to get a best price. It's money involved, so we understand that. And what we do is we have a offer and acceptance strategy so that we can make these things happen. Number one is you want to start off with a smart offer. All right. We can go through this over and over again, put in an offer, but if it's not a smart offer, it won't get ratified and you won't be able to move forward. So the first goal is to find a price where you like and also that the seller like, so you guys can be on a mutual agreement and you can get an acceptance. All right. The way to do that is a couple of ways. Number one is once we get you out and you start to look at property, all right, and you run across this property that you like. Let's, for instance, you run across this property and you love this property. And first goal I'm going to do, even before we leave that location, is I'm going to call that agent right away, okay? And I'm going to start to get a little warm and fuzzies between me and him. I'm going to start a relationship. I'm going to call him and tell him, hey, Mr. John Smith over here, and they love the property. And I might discuss with them what you like about the property, but I'll talk to him a little bit just to give him feeling good, and I'll let him know that, look, we're planning on putting a smart offer, a strong offer in. Now, a couple of questions you want to ask when that happens. Number one, you want to find out, is there any competition? So the first question I have to ask Mr. John is, do you have any offers? So let's say, yes, I have 2 offers. Guys, I don't want you to get alarmed because that's normal. That's okay. We've been in multiple offers before and we know we've also got acceptance. So that's no problem. But we want to know this information. Number 2 is we want to know, when are you going to sit down with your client to make a decision on the offers that you have? Because we want to know how long do we have to put in our offer. So those are one of the 2 major questions we have. So once we get that information, now I'm going to hang up with him and I'm going to start talking to you. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do what you call a CMA. Now guys, right now I want you to, if you got a pen and paper, I want you to write some of these things down because these are very important. A CMA is called a competitive or comparative market analysis, okay? And what it is we use comparables. We look at your property and then we go in the area, in the subdivision, the city and zip code, find those properties that has the same criteria as your property has, like the bathrooms are the same amount, the bedrooms, the square footage of the property, those things that similar, okay? And we want to find properties that's been sold within the last 3 to 6 months, all right? And we grab that information and we put it all together, all right? And then we sit down with you. Now let's say, for instance, there were 3 properties that's in that area that sold within the last 3 to 6 months. It's very similar to your property. We're going to bring that information to you and we're going to determine what's a good price for the property. Now we're doing this basically to get an opinion. It's called a market value of that property. The only way we know the price of that property is when it's sold. Okay? So understand that the price of a property can only be determined once the property is sold. What we do with a CMA is we get you the market value of that property. All right? That's very important that you know that. But what we do is we do the CMA. Once we pull it together, we don't give you an exact price we think your property is worth. We give you a range. Let's say there's 3 properties, one sold for $200,000. Let's say another one sold for maybe $210,000 and one sold in the middle about $205,000. So we're going to say your range now is between $200,000 and $210,000. And then you make a decision what you want to offer for that property. You're the boss, you make the decision. We'll just put some information in. We'll say, okay, number one, please understand there is competition. So be careful on how low you go. All right? Number two, we might talk about how long the property's been on the market. Because the property's been on the market for a long time, you might say, well, it's been on for over 6 months. Maybe you can go on the lower end. Okay? But these are things, or the conditions also is another issue. The conditions of the property is not feasible. I wouldn't say feasible, but it's not, it needs a lot of upgrades, let's say. All right? Then that's something else you might want to take in consideration. But we'll put that information together and you'll come up with a price. Okay? Now, once we come up with a price, then we'll take that and I'll call Mr. John again. I'll say, hey, Mr. John, you remember Lance Edwards and my client, Ms. Smith? We're ready to submit an offer to you. And what I'll do is I'll talk to them a little bit about our offer. Okay? Now, sometimes the listing agent won't talk to you. They'll say just send it in, but a lot of them will. And if they do, entertain them. Because the second step is now negotiation. And negotiation is very key, guys. Negotiation is to start a discussion with the intent on coming up with a solution. It's different from haggling. Haggling is totally different. Haggling is just saying, you know, the guy wants 210 and you go and say, well, give me 200 for it. All right? No reason why. You're just putting an offer because you're trying to lowball them. I'm going to be honest with you, listing agents don't like that. All right? And I can tell you that because I work on the other side of the transaction. I like somebody to communicate with me. All right? So it's very important that you negotiate, because while you're haggling, somebody can come in with a negotiation and actually get that property while you're sitting there haggling. So again, the goal is to negotiate. So we started discussing and I talked to him and I said, hey, I spoke to you earlier. I told you we had a good offer and here's our strong offer. And I based this on the comps. And sometimes they might ask you what kind of comps you got, because they did comps most likely also before they put a price on that property. And we'll discuss the comps. And I'll tell them, you know, we love this property. And if the price is not what they're asking for, I might talk to them a little bit about some things that we saw that maybe you didn't like. Like, for instance, let's say there were single pane windows in there, and you realize once you move in, you're going to have to change those windows. You want to get those high efficiency double pane windows so your energy don't just go out the window. So those are things you think about. You know, also it could be the furnace. The furnace could be very old. And you're thinking, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to probably have to replace that. So you're thinking about those monies that you may have to spend further on down the road that can have a bearing on what you want to offer on that property today. Okay? So we're talking. Now, he may come back and say, well, you know, Lance, you know, my client just did a brand new roof on that, one of the top of the line roofs, and it's, you know, it's worth probably will hold off for 25 to 30 years. So that's a good thing. But we're communicating. So that's the key. We're communicating. All right? So we'll put that offer in. Now, at that point, there's a couple of things that he can do. Okay? Number one, he can accept it. If he accepts it, all right, moving forward. Number two, he can not accept it. He can refuse that offer. He can reject it. Or he can counter you with another price. You know? So you have those options. And there's a lot of scenarios that can happen, but we're going to go forward and let's say that they select your offer. All right? Let's move from there. If they select your offer, now it's like you have a price that you like. The seller has a price that they like. And now you guys agreeing to that price. What you have now is what they call a ratified contract. And that's real big in the industry. Everybody like to hear ratified. That means that you, the seller, and you, the buyer, mutually agrees to the price and the conditions of the offer, and you're moving forward. Now, that's a good thing. Most people think once my offer is ratified now, wow, I'm almost at the end of the road. I'm about to get my keys and go in the door. Absolutely far from the truth. It's not what happens. The difference between the time between you being ratified and closing is where most of the work is done. Also is where most of the time is consumed. Because you can get a ratified contract within a week or two, or no, just a week or less. But it still may take 30 to 45 days to go to closing. So those times in between there is what they call a transaction management, what I was talking to you about earlier. Transaction management is the day-to-day servicing of your loan, of your offer. Now, what you got to understand is a lot of things happen once you get ratified. And I'm going to go over a few things with you guys. If you're very serious about this, I'm going to get you pad and pencil, and I want you to write this stuff down. Okay? Number one, once you get ratified, you have what you call a home inspection. That's the first thing that you do. As soon as you get ratified, our goal is 24 to 48 hours, we got a home inspector out there to take a look at that property. Now, a home inspector does a couple of things for you. One, he educates you and he protects you. Okay? The first thing, he educates you. And that means that he lets you know a little bit about your property. Okay? What he does is, he gives you information as far as where's the furnace, where's the hot water heater, is it electric, is it gas, how does the furnace work, how do you shut the furnace off, how do you shut the water heater off, maybe where the filter is for the furnace, how often do you replace it, where's the cutoff valve to shut all the water down just in case something happens. All these things are very important, and you must know these about your house, because if something happens, you need to know where to go. So that's very, very important. But that's what he does. Now, he also protects you, because once he goes into the property, he goes in to look at any structural deficiencies or issues that would readily miss when we were in there initially to look at the house. Because even though I'm a real estate agent, I can see certain things that I see as defects, but I don't have a trained eye to see exactly everything that's wrong with that property. That's why you get a home inspector out there. So he's going to go through, and he's going to go through with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, he's going to tell you little things like a crack in a window to the roof could be leaking in a day, a week or two. I mean, those are the things that he's going to let you know, because you want to know what condition your property is in when you move in. You don't want to move in and next thing you know, you're paying a whole lot of bills, right? So you want to understand when moving in what you have facing you, all right? Now, there's another person that's involved, and it's called the appraiser. The appraiser does a little bit similar to what we do, what's called a CMA. A CMA and appraiser is similar. A CMA, again, is a range, and it's also free to you by your agent. An appraisal is different. Appraisal is the bank issues an appraisal and sends an appraiser out to your property to give a value of a property. Again, he can't give you the cost now, because cost is when, you know, the cost is when it's sold. But he'll give you a value for it. And it won't be a range, it'll be exact value. So they'll be more detailed about how we do it, but he'll do the same thing, and a lot of times they'll come up with the same comps that we have. Okay? A lot of times. But he'll come up with a price. And that's very, very, very important, because whatever your offer price for that property, the appraisal has to come up to that price or more. Because if that appraiser goes out and said that that property is less than what you're offering, then the lender is not going to give you the money for a property that's not worth it. Meaning, if you have an offer for $200,000 and the bank comes out and say that property is worth $190,000, there's a problem there. The bank is not going to give you $200,000. They're going to only give you $190,000. And that's more negotiation we'll talk about further. But right now, we're going to move on. Let's just say that that's what the appraisal does. Now, also, you have something called a title company. Title company is very important. Guys, please write this down. Title company gives you information on the title. Exactly what it sounds like. The title. Now, the title, and what they want to present to you is a clear title. Okay, that's the word they use now. It's a clear title. I want it to be foggy, meaning there's issues with the title. And I'm going to give you maybe 2 examples of what I mean. One, you can have a property where maybe it has some liens on the property. Okay? Now, if it has some liens on the property, which you must understand is a lot of liens conveyed with the property. Meaning, if you have some liens on that property and you buy it, now that bill is yours. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say the guy, we speak about the guy doing a roof, brand new roof. Let's say he did a roof. He gave the man partial money. The guy went out, did the roof, put a beautiful roof on it. When he finished, the man said, I don't have the money. Get off my property. Okay, at that point, what can you do? Only thing the contractor can really do at that point is to go down to the courthouse and put in what they call a mechanical lien on the house. Okay? And when that mechanical lien is on the house, when that house is sold, the mechanical lien goes with the house. So you want to make sure that that's not the case. Another thing that's very popular is making sure that the person who's selling the house It's actually the person who owns the house, okay? And that might sound funny to you, but it's very important. One is, let's give you an example. It's an estate property where, let's say, a couple of brothers and sisters own the property. But one brother want to sell and the other one don't. The other ones that don't, maybe on the West Coast, maybe you're on the East Coast. The guy on the East Coast said, I'm going to sell this house. He put it up for sale. You don't know this, right? The title will know this. And they'll realize that. Because if you go to closing with this guy and he's the only one to sign it, they can come back at you and say, this is not a sale. And there will be some very serious problem there. So they want to make sure that who's selling it is who is out there, who's putting a signature on it, and that person outright owns that property. Or whoever else needs to come in and sign it, or we can't move forward. So title is very, very key also. But you got also a contractor. Because if the home inspector comes out and sees some repairs that needs to be done, sometimes you want to get a contractor out there to find out how much those repairs are going to cost. So you got all these guys right now that's inside this whole transaction. A lot of it's going on behind the scenes. Some of it you might not even see, but it is happening. Now the transaction coordinators, which we call it, we have 2 in our office, that's their goal. They want to service that loan every day to make sure all these guys are dealt with. All these balls in the air and everything is working. And guys, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about that. But we don't have that. You got people that doesn't do their job. They don't get information to you in the right time. So these things are crucial to make sure you stay on top of each and every one of them so they can do what they're supposed to do to bring this to closing. Because if one link fails, you will not go to closing. And I'm going to tell you now, there's been a lot of property or offers that have been dropped in between that servicing period. So even though the seller may agree and the buyer may agree on that initial offer, the whole relationship could crumble just because it wasn't serviced properly or something that somebody didn't do anything. Because what's important is time is of essence once you get ratification. And I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about that. Once you get ratified, time starts to tick. Your offer itself has a closing date. You must meet that offer or be ready before that date. If not, you're out of contract and you have to get an extension. Home inspection, for instance, once you get ratification, you got 7 to 10 days to get your home inspector out there and get a report done. So everything has time restraints on it. And if you miss one of those time restraints, you will have problems. So it's very important that once you get in this process, that if we call you, you must be available to us right away because we need you for something, or the lender may need you for something, or the title company may want to ask you something, or the contract, anybody. So it's a lot of information flowing back and forth, guys, and I know the anxiety is very high because I understand this is probably the biggest purchase of your life, so it's going to be a lot going on. So we always tell everybody, just take a deep breath, it's going to be okay, it's normal, okay? But that is what happens. So that transaction management is very, very important, but that's what gets you to closing. And we're very serious about making sure that you're happy once you get to that point. Now, once you get to that point, we still communicate with you, okay? But we want you to have a key, and we want you to be happy with that key. And we also want you to reach out to us if you have any questions even beyond that. All right, it's very important. So I hope you got this information that I gave you today. I'm going to explain to you one thing. We do a home buyers workshop every month. So if you ever want to get educated about the home buying process, just go on www.theseniorteam.com and you can register for the next workshop in your area. If you want to call us directly, if you have any questions for us at all, you give us a call at 301-627-1124. Thank you very much for your time, and you have a good day.